So you kind of build up your part. You get some instant snares. Go back to just a few. In this video I want to share with you how you can create your own generative experimental IDM type drums inside Ableton Live. And as you can see, I'm using some controllers, making it more performative, which is actually super fun, but you don't have to use them because the core idea is that I want to share with you how you can create your own little drum devices. So here, for example, you see I have a cymbal device, and if I play a clip, it basically has a static sound. And we can use a controller or also like the mouse to change the basic parameters like the pitch or the decay or the tone. But we can also apply some random modulation to those. So if I apply some modulation to the pitch, we get per trigger some random pitch value, making it actually super interesting. Also for the decay, the same. Or we could also apply this to the tone, creating those generative rhythms that never sound exactly the same, also based on the MIDI clip, but I'm going to explain all of this to you. And I must say, this approach is so fun. I could really get addicted to this because it's not about making a wrong choice. It's all about experimentation, trying stuff, and also laughing sometimes. I think you can make some quite funny beats this way. And yeah, let's just check out how this works. I just opened some empty Ableton sessions so we can really build this up from scratch. I must say, for what I'm using, you need standard at least because I'm using the drum synth engine, but you could just as well use some sampler. But I feel like Ableton has those 8 drum synths and they are really simple and straightforward. And actually for applying modulations, they are great because it's difficult to get confused. And let's actually use, for example, the cymbal that we heard in the intro. So it's like the drum synth cymbal. And there's another effect that is super crucial to what we're doing, and it's not at all shiny. I don't feel like so many people know about this, or it's at least doesn't get much attention. It's called expression control. It's a MIDI effect. And generally, those MIDI effects inside Ableton can be super, super powerful, but in my opinion, this is the most powerful one, so let's also load it. So we have the expression control and the cymbal engine. In terms of programming some experimental drum beats, I really like to work with randomness, and we can already use it here. So if I, for example, draw a whole bar of 16th notes, and by the way, for the drum synth, it only has one pitch. So on the MIDI keyboard, I can play it here, I can play it here. It's always the same pitch, which also makes it more simple in the beginning, so you don't get confused also by maybe triggering a wrong note. So we have this 16th note MIDI clip, and then we open up the chance menu, and they are still all selected, and we change it to maybe 60%. So only 60% of those notes are going to be triggered. We're going to have some gaps, so it sounds a little more interesting and we don't always get the same rhythm. Let's also make it a bit faster. Still, it's really static. We always have exactly the same sound and you can get bored by this pretty easily. And that's where expression control really starts to shine. And on the left side, you can basically select 5 different modes of expression control and select the same source for all of them. And for us right now, only the random one is interesting. And you can map it to, for example, something like the decay. Let's actually start with the decay because it's a great example. And now what's going to happen is that with every trigger, this expression control device sends out a random value to the decay. So for making it obvious, let's actually change this to 0. We can also increase the random amount, so it's like the maximum possible modulation. And this is going to be the modulation amount. So if this is at 0, we actually get a very short decay. Barely hear it. And if I increase it, we get those rhythms with different decays per trigger, and it's already way more exciting to listen to. And then you basically explore the modulation possibilities. So let's add another random LFO, you can call it. It's like an LFO per trigger, but the LFO device doesn't have like a comparable function, which makes this kind of unique. And it's also a feature I love from my Synth, like the little Synth, the little drum machine that I really like to use. It has a similar type of LFO. But inside Ableton, we have some unlimited amount of them. You can add 30 of those because if those are filled up, like all the 5 slots, you can just load up some new expression control device. So here we can also modulate the tone. So let's see how this sounds. Maybe also bringing it down, you get a lot of modulation if you bring down the value to the lowest amount. And so then you add the modulation on top. You can actually also do it the other way, but for me it's sometimes a bit confusing. So I like to actually add the modulation, but just so you know, you can do this both ways. So it has different tones per trigger. And that's already great as a layer, but let's also apply some modulation to the pitch, because pitch modulation for cymbals is also incredibly fun. Random amount and start at 0. And actually, let's pitch it down. Really simple, but incredibly fun. Just for repeating the process once, let's also create a kick drum part. So we create a new MIDI track. We need some expression control, and we also need a drum synth, this time the DS kick. I will show you in a second how you can do it with the sampler as well. So we do actually the same thing. We program all notes, but for kick drums, let's actually keep the first one at 100%. So we always get a 1. It gives the beat some stability instead of having like the pure randomness. And those other ones we actually put way lower, so maybe like 30, because we don't need like multiple kick drums, just a few every now and then. But already this sounds kind of interesting to me. But again, with the kick drum, it's fun to add certain modulations as well. First of all, I need some drive. And we use the random for example, modulating the decay again. Modulating the decay is one of my favorite things to do. It's in 95% of the cases really enjoyable to listen to. Actually, let's do it this way. Could be fun to modulate the attack as well. So sometimes we actually don't get like a thick, thumpy kick drum. We actually get like a little swell. Let's see how this sounds. Starting at 0. Here would be some example where we only need a little bit of it. Or we can also modulate the drive. And again, pitch modulation for kick drums, really fun. You almost get some bass melodies. If you keep the output range really narrow, actually it gives you some more chromatic melodies. So it's really easy to get carried away by doing this. It's just such a pleasant thing to apply modulations, and Ableton has no limits. It's like some super open modular synth where you can basically apply any type of modulation to any type of parameter. And that's the great thing about expression control. So it doesn't need to be like a DS kick, for example. You could also, let's actually duplicate the track, but replace the kick drum with a sample. So if I go to drums and then we just load up any type of kick drum sample, maybe this one, you can still, let's actually see how this sounds. I have no idea. Still apply the randomness to, for example, the decay. You still have to figure out how to set up the sustain and stuff. We need some randomness applied to the release as well. So you see, it needs some tweaking. I just wanted to show you that you can apply it to really any parameter. So all the time you feel like you have a sound where it could need something extra. It maybe doesn't have to be some effect. It just needs to be some little modulation, like some random modulation of any type of parameter. Again, decay is great, but could work for anything like the frequency, the LFO time, the tuning, you name it. Now, while you can work like this by just picking like the random section and then changing the output range, it's not like the most appealing system for modulating sound. And also in the beginning, you saw that I have those little devices where I can use my MIDI controller, because some controllers like the Launchkey automatically give you like some device control per selected track, which is super useful here. And I want to share with you how you can set this up, because it's not like overly complicated. You have to select both devices, so you have to check that they are both lighting up, so they are both selected, and then you press Command G, or you can also right click and select Group. So that's basically what we're going to do here, because now we created a new instrument rack, and instrument racks are so amazing because you can build your own custom effects, your own custom samples, your own custom sounds, and create the kind of controls that you really need. So here we have 8 macros. You could have more, but actually I want to keep it at 8 because most of those smart controllers have like 8 macros as well, or 8 knobs. And then you can basically connect those parameters to the macros of the instrument rack. So we can apply the pitch to macro 1, for example, while we apply the modulation of the pitch, which is we didn't actually no, we have it here, which is like the output range amount we applied to macro 2. So we have the pitch and the modulation amount, and then I think it really helps to give them the same color, so you know that this modulation amount is actually connected to the pitch. One more thing, if you click map, you open the left side menu, you actually get the minimum maximum setting, and for the modulation amount I like to switch this to 0, so we only add modulations. Otherwise it's going into both ways, and it's a bit confusing because if you double click on the knob, it lands either in the middle, or actually if you have the other way, or actually at 50%, also if you have this other setting at -100, and if you change it to show generic value, it will actually jump back to 0. So I just find this useful. If you double click, you go back to 0. So it's basically no modulation. You can start by finding a cool pitch. Actually, let's get rid of those other modulations for now, so we don't get confused. So this is only pitch control, but as soon as you feel like, okay, I want to add a little bit of movement, you just increase the modulation amount. I could also use this one now. So now we can change the pitch, but set one pitch, and as soon as we feel like, okay, would be nice to have some random modulation per trigger, we just increase the modulation amount. And we can do the same for the decay, map it to macro 3, for example. And here we already have the output range of the decay, macro 4. Choose a color, the same color for both, so you know that they are connected. And then you can immediately set a decay and a modulation. Oh, and again for the modulation, I think it's good to repeat this a couple of times. 0 and show generic value. So this is at 0, and then we set a decay. Actually a shorter one, so we can add some longer ones through the modulation. And this is basically how you can set this up. I opened up another session now because you can see I prepared 8 tracks with all those 8 different drum synthesizers. It would just be too much for the video to explain all the individual setups, but it's exactly the same approach that I've shown you, just with those individual synthesizers. And be known that there's a download option. So if you feel like you like this video, this was valuable for you, and you also want to support my work, for just a few euros, you can get this template with all those 8 devices set up for instant performance, as you can see here. And also there's a drum rack, so actually 2 of them, but I'll speak about them in a second because it's also really fun to integrate those sounds we just created into a drum rack. But before getting into that, I want to share with you this fun performance concept, because you can see I have clips here. My whole Launchpad is actually filled up with clips, like 8 times 8. And those are all the same clips, so you don't need to do it with like 8 clips, just as many tracks as you have, could also be just 4. And then for making full random beats, it doesn't have to be fully random. You can also kind of compose concrete rhythms here. But just as an example, I have a kick pattern where all those notes have like the chance of 10%. So only a 10% chance. For the kick drum, as I mentioned, I like to keep the first note at 100%, so we get some sort of stability. For the snare, for example, we have the 11% chance for all triggers. Same for the clap, the hi-hat, etc. And the lower we go, the more chance we get. So here we have a higher chance, and just watch this little chance section here. So it's like 24%. Now it's like 38%, 49%, 60%, and so on. So you can start with a kick pattern that doesn't have so many notes. Add some modulation. But then add a very busy hi-hat part. Maybe some occasional toms. Some very noisy tom. Some occasional cymbals. So you kind of build up your part. You get some instant snares. Go back to just a few. That's also what you saw me doing in the intro. It's like super, super fun. Actually, if you have 2 controllers like this, you could use the launch key in a way that you go way lower. And you see the bracket here, it has like 9 and 10. And now we can actually use the lower one for stopping clips, which is useful. You could also mute them or solo. And then here we can actually select them. So we can select the one where we want to modulate the parameters. Super amazing thing about using instrument racks is also that you can store some presets. So if you open up the preset list, actually it's already opened. So it's this one. You see I stored some, and you can easily store your own. So if let's actually use just some FM rhythm. Create a new preset. Then we might change something. Maybe it's lower, other tone, less feedback. That's our new preset. You simply click on save, and then it stores this preset, and then you give it a name. So just to make it clear, new preset. And then you collect all of those, and it's pretty amazing because inside one device, let me just show you some examples on what you can make with this one synth engine. Random melodies or a bass. Actually also bass with some little tone modulation. Something noisy. Something like a guitar. All with the same engine and through different combinations of those 8 knobs. It's like super, super inspiring. And there's one more thing that I like a lot. It's one of my favorite things in Ableton, using the random button, because this one randomizes all those values. So it gives you some presets that you would possibly not find if you move the knobs yourself. Let's see how this can sound like. So you see, some of them are unusable, but at the same time, it depends on your taste. Sometimes you also realize, wow, I didn't know that it can actually create this type of noise, this type of distortion. And then you just move the knobs a little until you make it a little more, or it fits a bit more your taste. But to me, it's like some super amazing tool. And if I create like a little device like this, I always hit the random button a couple of times. And to be honest, some of those presets are also based on some idea that came up pushing or pressing the random button. And yeah, so if you get this little device I mentioned, you get all those presets as well. There are just a few per instrument, as you can see. Now, this is already a lot to explore, and before you head over to your DAW and try all this stuff yourself, I want to share one more thing with you that I think is also really amazing, which is using those sounds inside a drum rack. Because by using a drum rack, you can save this one kit that contains all those sounds, so you can use it in a more flexible way, at least in my opinion. You don't have all those individual tracks. And also for applying like overall effects, it's super cool, because here you see I have one, actually I have two, but I want to share this one first, where I add some filter and some bit depth, and then you can turn this into some even more, sometimes industrial, but also experimental drum machine that creates some super, super awesome sounds. And it doesn't take so much time. So if you open like a MIDI track, or you insert a new MIDI track and you go to drums and drum rack, you add a drum rack, you basically go to each individual sound. So if you have the kick, you again select it, press Command and C or right mouse and copy. You go to the drum rack, and then you go to the pad you want to use, let's say C1, because it's also suggested for bass drum. Then you have to click here once, otherwise it's going to replace the whole drum rack. So you see this thin bar. You press Command V, or also again right click and paste, and then you have the drum, the kick drum here. So pretty cool. And this you can basically do for all those voices. So I actually selected those spots because it gives you some suggestions here on the lower bar, but you can put it wherever you want. Maybe you also play it with some pads or some drum pad or those things. And then you can basically send them. As you can see, I have some reverb bus and some delay bus, and also like a mix bus. It's for the drum racks. It's like sometimes a bit confusing, but here you can see that once you open up the input-output section, you have like this audio too. And so if it's on rack output, you can't add some master effects, but if you send it to a mix bus you create here by right-clicking and create return chain, then you can put some stuff here. So that's what I did. And I mapped, for example, the filters to the device controls. So here you can see the frequency, for example. If I right-click, it's mapped to high pass. So it's again the same as with the little devices. If you want to control something, you map it. Same with the drive. Right-click, map to, in this case, unmap from drive because it's already mapped there. And I have the same for like a low-pass filter. And here I have Redux as well, which is some super fun effect for creating those industrial soundscapes. It's like the bit reduction. I don't even use the rate. So also this one is mapped to macro 4, as you can see here. And then I also have like the reverb and delay amount. And then you can have some more fun with the drum kit as a whole. So you can play with the filters. And this is just what I did. So you can set this up with your own effects. It's super personal. I think filters are great, drive is great, bit reduction is great, but you could also add chorus or whatever kind of effect you feel suits your drum kit. And just to give you some example that this is like some never-ending story, because you can again use some MIDI effect like the expression control, put it in front of the drum rack, use some random LFOs and map it, for example, to the high pass, and now you again create some randomness with this high pass macro. Actually, randomness for delay is also great. Like sometimes you have more, sometimes you have less. Or let's try it with the low pass filter. Again, super addictive. I could continue like this forever. Maybe as a last information for the MIDI clip here, So you see I have those 8 different parts, and this looks super confusing, but I want to show you what you can do here for creating the same random approach. If you want to make it like fully randomized, you just draw all notes for basically all instruments. I'm not going to do it now. I'll just show you with those 2. And then you select a certain row. So if you click on the piano icon, you actually select all notes in this row. And then you can, for example, say, okay, the kick drum has like a 10% chance, although maybe the first one is going to be there on the 1. But this clip maybe features the snare. So the snare is like on some 70% probability, whereas maybe there's the hi-hat that has like a, what should we use? 50% probability. So you can kind of create different focus parts. Actually, I have some here inside another track. So for example, there's like a snare focus part where you can see if I select the snare, it has some higher chance, whereas the clap is like at 11, but the snare is like 58. So we hear more snare if we play this clip. So I think there's a lot to explore. Again, if you feel like this was some cool video, you would like to support the channel, besides subscribing, which is free, be warmly invited to check out this not only template, because you can get the template, but also this drum rig. And there's some additional drum rig for some really mad randomization, but this I explain on the product page. So warm invitation to check it out. If you're interested in seeing more videos about generative music ideas, mostly inside Ableton Live, I'm going to link you a playlist here. And also here's some fun video about some approach that makes you more productive producing music, something that actually helps you to finish tracks. Apart from that, I wish you lots of inspiration with whatever it is that you create, and really hope to see you soon again at this channel. Bye.